This video is made possible by donations to the United States Lighthouse Society from people like you. So welcome everybody, and it's always nice to see you. Again, there's so many of you who come to a lot of these events. We really appreciate it. Always good to see you. So I don't want to do a long introduction because we got a lot of ground we want to cover tonight, and I think quite a few of you are probably already quite familiar with what the Flying Santa is and has been for let's see, almost 100 years now, 96 years. So it's a fantastic tradition and one that's still going strong. And we have a number of people who've been very closely involved in that tradition with us tonight. So I'm going to introduce a few people right now as we get started. One of those people is my good friend Dolly Bicknell, Dolly Snow Bicknell, and Dolly is here from her home in Marshfield, Mass. And some of you may know Dolly's name for a few reasons, but she is the daughter of Edward Rowe Snow, who was a hero of mine growing up and was the Flying Santa for more than 40 years. And Dolly is also a lighthouse preservationist in her own right. So nice to have you here tonight, Dolly.
Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you're so welcome. So I don't want people to think I'm not giving anybody a chance to talk here. We're going to have a Q&A session after I do a presentation, and everybody will have a chance to ask Dolly and our other guests some questions. We also have with us Bill Wincapaw III. There you are. There you are, Bill. So glad you could make it. Bill is the grandson of the original Flying Santa, who I'm going to be talking about shortly, Bill Wincapaw the first. Great to have you here tonight, Bill.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Really glad you could be here. What a family legacy. And we also have, I think at least two that I'm sure about. I'm not sure if the third one has come in, but at least two, possibly three Santas with us tonight. One of those is Dave Considine, who's here. And Dave, you've been Santa quite a few times in recent years, right?
Yes, sir. Great to see everybody. Appreciate everyone supporting the program.
And Dave, I understand you have to leave a little early, so sadly you won't be able to be part of the Q&A, but we appreciate you being here at the beginning. We have John Roberts, who, besides being a Santa, both Dave and John are retired chief warrant officers in the Coast Guard. And John, I got to know when he was the officer in charge here at Portsmouth Harbor Station, New Hampshire, a few minutes from where I live here. So, John, great to see you tonight.
Thanks so much, Jeremy. It's great to see everyone. Unbelievable program. Super cool to be a part of it.
Sure is. I'm just scanning the people who are here tonight. I know we're expecting another very important part of this and another frequent Santa, Tom Guthline. I'm not seeing him right now, but maybe he'll come. But we also have my good friend Brian Tague. Brian is, Santa's busy this time of year, but Brian is more busy. He's the busiest guy on the planet this time of year. And I'm so happy you could take a little time out from your incredibly busy schedule to be here tonight, Brian. So Brian is the president of Friends of Flying Santa. He's been involved for how long? Almost 96 years, right? Right, Brian?
35.
35? Yeah. Well, I'm sure it feels like 96 sometimes, but you do amazing work. So you're kind of in the middle of this year's flights. How's it going so far?
It's been busy. Working straight out since September, and we finished our Maine, New Hampshire flight on Saturday. We flew from Norwood, Mass, all the way up to Jonesport, Maine, and made our way back down to Portsmouth. We're supposed to, if the weather cooperates, we'll fly Saturday to all the Massachusetts stops. Sunday we'll do New York, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. And then next Wednesday, we'll drive up to Vermont and do the Burlington Coast Guard units. And then on the 13th, we'll do Upper Narragansett Bay, South Shore, and Boston.
Wow. And of course, it's all weather permitting. I know, right now, right where I am here in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, it's about some like 7 degrees and very windy. So tomorrow wouldn't be a good day to fly, but the weekend's supposed to be pretty good. All right.
We don't mind the cold and the wind. It's the precip that matters. Rain or snow or low clouds. That's usually what stops us. So
Yeah.
it was windy up in Maine on Saturday. Very low wind chill, but the weather was clear. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, anyway, so glad you could be here tonight, Brian. So I should probably get started on the presentation. Again, let me mention this event is being recorded. It will be posted on the U.S. Lighthouse Society YouTube channel and on the Friends of Flying Santa YouTube channel. I'm planning on posting it tomorrow on the USLHS channel. And I should probably remind you, although nobody has unmuted themselves without permission, but please keep your mics muted during the event. We really appreciate that. And do not try to share your screens. I have it set so I don't think anybody can do that anyway, but I'll be the only one sharing my screen tonight. And then there will be again Q&A. Sorry, what was that? Somebody said something. I'm not sure what that was. Okay. Anyway, maybe I'm hearing things, but there will be a Q&A session at the end, and everybody will have a chance to direct questions at all our guests. So let me go ahead and share my screen and get started here. Okay. What's playing on the screen right now, the 3 recent video clips are just things that I took. The 2 on the right I did on a day that I flew along with Santa. I think it's about 10 years ago now. And I was going to mention before when I was talking with Brian that what I learned that day is that Brian and Santa and the helicopter pilots who fly these flights work unbelievably hard. All I did was sit in the back of the helicopter and get in and out of the stops, and I was completely exhausted at the end of that very long day. So they worked so hard, and it was so much fun to be part of that day. On the lower left, that's the helicopter flying by Portsmouth Harbor Light, my local lighthouse here. Let me get into the history here. And I'm going to start with the Bill Wincapaw years, the beginning of the program, which was 1929. This is Captain William H. Wincapaw, who was an aviator, adventurer, and again, the founder of the Flying Santa program. He was born in 1885. He was a native of Friendship, Maine, in the mid-coast area. He got the nickname Captain not because he was a pilot, but because he sailed coasting vessels and yachts, and so he was a nautical captain before he flew planes. He started flying in 1911. He was a civilian instructor during World War I. After the war, he started flying seaplanes out of New York. And he returned to Maine, started the Maine Air Transport Company in Rockland, and supervised the construction of a seaplane ramp in the harbor. He flew mostly amphibious. Whoop. Somebody, be sure your mics are muted. I just heard a voice from somewhere, or maybe it was in my head. But anyway, so Captain Wincapaw flew mostly amphibious airplanes, and Brian, who knows much more about aircraft than I do, tells me this was a 1928 Ireland amphiplane. He often flew sick and injured islanders in the Penobscot Bay area to medical facilities, and you see the article on the right that tells about some of that. And he saved many lives, certainly, in that capacity. By 1929, Captain Wincapaw was overseeing operations of the Curtiss Flying Service of the Rockland Airfield and the nearby seaplane base. At night and in bad weather, he often relied on lighthouses to help him get to his destinations. The lighthouse keepers would often watch for him, and they would relay word to the airfield to let them know he was coming. And he got to know many of the keepers personally. He would visit them sometimes, and he had a tremendous appreciation for the kind of thankless work that they did. There's a rare picture of Captain Wincapaw with the Santa beard on. On Christmas Day, 1929, he loaded his plane with about a dozen packages containing newspapers, magazines, coffee, candy, and other items. And again, I'll just remind, I think somebody might have their mic open. Let me... I'm just checking here. Okay. And I'm also letting somebody in from the waiting room. He got to know so many of the keepers, as I said, and on Christmas Day, 1929, he loaded his plane with about a dozen packages containing newspapers, magazines, coffee, candy, and other items. He dropped the packages at the lighthouses in the Rockland area as a gesture of gratitude for the keepers and their families. The flights got a great reaction from the keepers. They really appreciated being appreciated. And he expanded the flights in the following years to more of the Maine coast and to the other New England states. And he soon was dropping presents at around 25 lighthouses. Here is Captain Bill and Bill Jr. Bill Jr. started flying with his father when he was 4. He was at the controls by the time he was 11, but he wasn't flying solo when he was 11. He would have his father or somebody, some other pilot with him. But I'll get back to his flying in a while. But he was really kind of a prodigy at piloting a plane. This is a 1932 article. You see the Guardians of Our Coast column from a Maine newspaper. The man on the right with his wife, it's Keeper Arthur Mitchell at Fort Point Lighthouse in Stockton Springs, Maine. That's a fog bell tower. You see the fog bell right behind her there. In 1932, in this article, Arthur Mitchell was quoted. He said, quote, this is obviously addressed to Captain Wincapaw. We thank you for remembering us again this year. The bundle of papers and magazines landed very near our mailbox. Our dog was the first to hear the sound of the motor, and we all rushed out in time to see the plane circle over the reservation and go sailing down the Penobscot again. And Keeper N.B. Pickett at Pond Island Lighthouse said, quote, we received the bundle of papers from out of the air. There were just my wife and myself on here, and it gets lonely sometimes, so you can see we were very pleased with the reading, unquote. Referring to the newspapers and magazines that were in the packages. Here is Captain Wincapaw and Bill Jr. loading up in 1936. And you see in both of these pictures that the plane said La Touraine on it. Of course, you're probably familiar with La Touraine Coffee, which was one of a family of companies under the umbrella of the Quimby Company in Boston, and they were a major sponsor of the Flying Santa in the early years. The Wincapaws moved to Winthrop, Mass. in 1933. And by that time, the flights went to as many as 91 lighthouses and Coast Guard stations. And I'm sure many of you know that's Boston Light, and the photo on the right, by the way. Bill Jr. helped out on the flights. In 1934, he became the youngest licensed pilot in Massachusetts. He was 16 at the time. He flew some of the route that Christmas and flew on his own to some of the lighthouses the following year. And here is a picture from 1936 of Captain Wincapaw at the controls and Bill Jr. demonstrating his bombardiering technique. I love this picture. This is also 1936, and this was taken by a man by the name of Alton Hall Blackington, who was a friend of Edward Rowe Snow, and he was a photographer and writer, radio personality. I believe he wrote about and talked about stories of the New England coast, very similar to Edward Rowe Snow. And he took a series of publicity pictures for the Wincapaws, and it always, to me, looks like they're out of a movie like Casablanca or something of that era. So I love that picture. They don't exactly look like Santa Clauses there, but great picture. And here it is. Here's the Flying Santa plane passing Boston Light again. And a lot of these pictures, older pictures of Boston Light, you see that old duplex house that was there that was actually demolished in the early 1960s, so it's not there anymore. And flying over Graves Light, 1936. Just a couple of miles from Boston Light and outer Boston Harbor. Beautiful granite tower. And in these pictures, you see Bickford's on the plane. Bickford's Restaurants was another part of the Quimby family of companies. So that's why you see La Touraine and Bickford's on the planes around that time. And there's Captain Wincapaw and Bill Jr. loading up again. A newspaper article in 1936 said that the packages that year weighed 16 pounds each and that they were wrapped at a Boston warehouse by a dozen Boston society girls. So I guess these are the society girls in this photo here. Coffee, cookies, silk hose, magazines, almanacs, candy, cigarettes, and a book were some of the ingredients. Here's Captain Wincapaw experimenting with a parachute. Parachutes were never really used in the Santa flights. You can imagine how hard it was flying in a plane over, in some cases, a small island or even a rock, and trying to drop presents onto, to hit that target as you were flying over at quite a high speed. So imagine how much harder it would be to do that with a parachute attached to the package that would get caught in the wind and the air currents and so forth. And it seems to me it would be pretty much impossible to hit your target. I think Edward Rowe Snow experimented a little later on, but it turned out to be a pretty terrible idea. And here are Captain Wincapaw and Bill Jr. in a larger plane. I believe this was in the early 1940s. Okay, so moving along, the Edward Rowe Snow years begin in 1936, and there's an overlap of about a decade between the Wincapaw years and the Edward Rowe Snow years, and I'll explain that. So Edward Rowe Snow was born in Winthrop, Massachusetts in 1902, and I'll tell you that personally, he was a hero of mine growing up. I grew up in Lynn, Mass, near Boston. And when I was growing up in the 60s, to date myself a little bit, he was always on radio and TV. He was always telling stories of the New England coast and shipwrecks and pirates and lighthouses and all the stuff that makes the New England coast so interesting. So I probably wouldn't be sitting here now or doing any of the lighthouse stuff I've been doing for the last 30 years if not for him. He was one of the most popular historians and storytellers of the New England coast. He wrote more than 40 full-length books and many shorter ones, well over 100 in all. First book was Islands of Boston Harbor in 1935. He usually included his latest book in the Santa packages over the years. He was teaching history in Winthrop High School in the 1930s. Bill Wincapaw Jr., had him as a teacher, history, I believe. In 1936, Edward Rowe Snow flew with Bill Jr. to 25 stops in southern New England, while Bill Sr. flew the northern route. And Adriel Byrd, who was the president of the Quimby Company, the big sponsor, flew on one of those flights that year. Whoops. Okay. So here is Edward Rowe Snow helping to load up the plane, circa 1936. And then not long after that, he started wearing the Santa suit. And he, of course, did this many times. And I should mention that he was never a pilot. Unlike Bill Wincapaw, Edward Rowe Snow was not a pilot. And in the years when he kind of took over the program, he always had to hire a plane and pilot out of his own pocket. Here's Graves Light. In 1938, Bill Wincapaw Sr. flew to Bolivia to fly gold and mining equipment, and Edward Rowe Snow made the flights that year with Bill Jr. This is Minus Light down off the south side of Boston Harbor. Very dramatic 114-foot granite tower on a ledge that's actually underwater at high tide. So it was quite a challenge to drop presents anywhere. And overall, I believe Edward Rowe Snow had something like a 92% accuracy rating. But at a place like this, it was a lot lower. It was like 10% or something like that. So he developed a method where he would tie two packages, or I think maybe sometimes three, with long lengths of very heavy-duty rope. And he would, as he flew over, he would try to sort of lasso the top of the lighthouse to drape that rope and presents over the top. And I guess it was successful sometimes anyway. And I think you would always have extra packages in those cases. But you can see the keeper at the top there, and I'm not quite sure if I think he's holding a package, or he might be waving his hat. It's a little hard to tell, but there is definitely a keeper up there. This is a Boston Light, and then I believe this is about 1940. And that's Edward Rowe Snow on the far right, and the keeper standing next to him was Maurice Babcock, who was keeper at Boston Light, 1926 to 41. He was the last civilian keeper until Sally Snowman, the recent keeper, was hired. But anyway, at that time there were 3 keepers at Boston Light, and as many as about 19 kids living on that tiny little island. And you see a bunch of the kids there, and you see all the pile of presents there. So there were a lot of kids awaiting presents there. And this was also a promotion for Christmas seals that year. In 1939, Bill Wincapaw returned and shared the flights. And this picture always reminds me of Albert Einstein. I think his Santa wig was a little loose or something. But anyway, so he was back in 1939. This picture is from 1940, and it's one of the more famous flying Santa stories. This is 10-Pound Island Light in Gloucester Harbor, Massachusetts. You can see Merry Christmas on the ground there. It's a little hard to see, but the lighthouse is the dark, it was painted dark brown. It's kind of in the middle of the picture next to the keeper's house. Over to the left, there's a fog bell tower. Anyway, the keeper at that time in 1940 was Edward Hopkins. And the story goes that they knew the Flying Santa was going to fly over this one afternoon. And Mrs. Hopkins, the keeper's wife, said to her husband, Santa's going to be flying over. We should do something special. And they say that he was just reading a magazine by the kitchen stove, and he just grunted at her. So she went out on her own and nailed newspapers to the ground to spell out Merry Christmas, as you see there. And when Edward Rowe Snow flew over, he took this picture. And then when he landed in, I'm not sure if it was Boston or Norwood, the airport at Norwood, Massachusetts, near Boston, but he handed the film to somebody who got it quickly to the Boston Globe, and it was in the newspapers that evening. And supposedly the keeper's son was on the mainland, and he brought the evening paper to the island, and his mother was quite amazed and happy to see the picture just taken a few hours before on the front page of that evening's newspaper. And I guess Keeper Hopkins, maybe he smiled a little bit, or maybe he just grunted again. I'm not sure. And here is Edward Rowe Snow and his wife, Anna Merle Snow. Anna Merle flew for the first time in 1940. She flew with her husband just about every time after that for many years. That was also the first year Wiggins Airways became involved. They provided the planes many times for the next 60 years. I'm going to play you an audio clip here, just maybe about a minute. And you're going to hear Anna Merle Snow. This was recorded in the late 1980s in one of the annual Edward Rowe Snow Days at George's Island in Boston Harbor. And I recorded this. Somebody asked her basically what was in the packages. So let me go ahead and play this, and hopefully you'll be able to hear it.
What type of presents did you bring in?
Books, candy, pen and pencil set. Believe it or not, dark glasses. Somebody, a friend of Mr. Snow's, gave him some dark glasses to send in the packages. And they were each individual present was wrapped in newspaper because they dropped from an airplane, you see. They dropped from an airplane. He went twice by helicopter, but the other time he went by regular plane. Cessna or Piper or whatever it happened to be. He did not own the plane, he hired it, and we used to say we could have had a very fancy home if we had used the money in other ways, but think of how much more fun it was to give it to the people of the lighthouses, to see them coming out. When you're in the plane, you see them coming out. He would go around the lighthouse first and let them know he was coming. And then he would drop a package. He'd look out and see if they got it. He'd go around again and drop another package. And it was so much fun, such satisfaction.
I love how you can really hear the joy in her voice about how great that was. The flights were cut back during World War II. Edward Rowe Snow was a reconnaissance photographer during the war, and he was wounded in North Africa believe he recovered in England for a while. Bill Jr. served in the Navy, and during the war, Bill Wincapaw Sr. was the chief of maintenance at the Quonset Naval Air Station in Rhode Island. Edward Rowe Snow returned as the Flying Santa in 1943. Okay, this is the beginning of one of the most famous stories in Flying Santa history, maybe the most famous story. The girl you see here is Simond Ponsart. She later became Simond Ponsart Roberts. She was the daughter of the keeper. Her father was Octave Ponsart. It's a Belgian name. At Cuttyhunk Lighthouse, that you see here. Cuttyhunk is an island at the end of an island chain off of Cape Cod called the Elizabeth Islands. It's the way out far western end of those islands. And Simond is 5 years old, I believe, in this picture, and she was 5 when this story happened. So in 1945, she was expecting the Flying Santa to drop her a present, and for months she was looking forward to this. And every time she heard a plane flying overhead, she'd say, "Is that Santa?" She thought every plane was going to be Santa. Finally, around Christmas, Santa flew over and dropped, I believe it was more than one present, dropped at least a couple of packages for the Ponsart family. One of the packages was a doll for Simond. This is the sad part of the story, but it gets better. But anyway, the package with the doll hit a rock, and the doll was broken. And her father did the best he could to kind of patch it up. I think he put a bandage on the head and so forth. But poor Simond was very sad that her doll was broken, and she cried herself to sleep that night, so they say. And that's the downer part of the story, but it gets much better. I believe that Simond's mother contacted Edward Rowe Snow and told him what had happened, and he basically said, "Well, that's not going to do." So the following year, he hired a helicopter. First time Santa flew in a helicopter. This Sikorsky S-51 Dragonflies. This is 1946. By that time, the Ponsart family had moved to West Chop Lighthouse in Martha's Vineyard. And Edward Rowe Snow, just so he could hand a doll to little Simond, flew the helicopter to Martha's Vineyard and landed and handed her the doll in person. So this is a little bit of old film here. There's the helicopter. You're going to see West Chop Lighthouse in a moment. But actually, the transfer, the handing over of the doll happened at Gay Head at the western end of the island, but near the lighthouse and life-saving station there. But there's West Chop Lighthouse, where the Ponsart family lived for about 10 years. And here is Santa bringing the doll to Simond. And her parents are behind her. Her father's right behind her. Her mother, Emma, is on the far right. And I believe that's another keeper and family from the lighthouse, or they might have been from the life-saving station. But anyway, that is one of the great moments in Flying Santa history right there. And that's I believe, the life-saving station. There's Gay Head Lighthouse. Okay. And here's a still picture of that momentous event. And Simond was a good friend of mine. She just passed away a couple of years ago. And this was a central event in her life. It meant so much to her. She could not say enough good about the Flying Santa program and about Edward Rowe Snow and his family. She just loved it so much. And Simond and I wrote a book together called Everyday Heroes, True Story of a Lighthouse Family, and the story is told in detail in there. And there's also a children's book about it, which I'll mention again at the end of the presentation here. But again, a great moment there. And this is not the same year. I believe this was another year soon after that. And he returned by plane multiple times, I believe, to Martha's Vineyard. And he's got another doll there for Simond. This is a card sent by her father, Keeper Octave. This is not the year after the doll broke. This is maybe a year or two after that, but he's thanking Edward Rowe Snow for the package, for the doll. She is very much pleased with her Santa that has seen her and has come 3 Christmases a running. So again, the keepers and families were always so grateful for that. So here we have Bill Wincapaw again. In 1946, the Winkapaws flew the northern route while the Snows flew the southern route. On July 16th, 1947, Bill Wincapaw suffered a heart attack shortly after taking off from Rockland Harbor. His Cub cruiser seaplane plunged into the harbor, and he and his 20-year-old passenger both died. Wincapaw was 62, and that was enormous news in Maine and in New England. Memorial service was attended by lighthouse keepers, their families, island residents, and representatives of the Coast Guard, Army, and Navy. At 2 o'clock, as the service began, foghorns and bells were sounded all over the Penobscot Bay area in his memory. So in 1947, Edward Rowe Snow flew as the Flying Santa. Here's the Flying Santa plane that year. See Wiggins Airways, again, a big sponsor, passing Boston Light. That year, 1947, he dropped a wreath in Rockland Harbor in memory of Captain Wincapaw. That year, Edward Rowe Snow visited 176 lighthouses from Canada to Florida. So pretty much every year, the Flying Santa would cover New England, but occasionally they would go as far south as Florida or even Bermuda, I believe at least once, and would sometimes go up to Atlantic Canada, I think at least a couple of times over to the Great Lakes, and at least once, I think, out to the West Coast. Maybe Dolly can correct me if I've got that wrong. But anyway, it was pretty much New England, but occasionally other parts too. Did I get that more or less right, Dolly, you think?
I think you did pretty well.
Okay, thank you. All right. And speaking of Dolly, here is Edward and Anna Merle and Dolly. Dolly, I don't know if you want me to guess what year this might be, but I'm going to say 1960-ish, somewhere around there. Okay, okay. And so the Snows moved to Marshfield, Mass. Again, Edward Rowe Snow, originally from Winthrop on the north shore of Boston. They moved to Marshfield and around 1950. Dolly
Hey,
came a little bit after that.
in that picture back there, I just happened
Yeah.
to notice
Yeah.
there's an extra Santa hat coming out of his briefcase. You see the pom-pom on the end?
Of
Sorry.
his briefcase. Where's
Yeah,
the
the briefcase.
briefcase? Oh,
It's
down
on
the
the
bottom.
ground.
Okay, but
Yes.
I see that. Yeah, just in case, right? If he lost a hat
He
out the.
often forgot and had the hat on when he put his head out the window and it would get sucked out.
Oh, that's
There's a backup there. I'd
good.
never seen that before.
Oh, that's funny. Good eye. I certainly hadn't noticed that. We'll talk. I'm going to talk about the beard in a couple of minutes here. But anyway, 'cause there's some beard stories as well. And Dolly, you've told me you can chime in here too if you want. But you told me that the ping pong table in the basement would be Flying Santa Central in the weeks leading up to Christmas.
Right,
Is that
there were
right?
stations for everything, for wrapping the sunglasses, for wrapping his books. Everybody had a job. And then the bowline, I learned how to tie a bowline because of that. And then you'd wrap after everything was in the package, the brown wrapping paper, and then the bowline, and then he'd write on the outside stag or family or dog or whatever.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, definitely we want to get more into this when we get to the Q&A, but thank you. Yeah. And another great picture of the Santa family, I mean Snow family. That's great. This may be my favorite of those pictures.
And it says for the children of Cuttyhunk from the Flying Santa.
Yes. Oh, thank you for pointing that out. Yeah. Okay, this is Sankaty Headlight on Nantucket, and I believe this photo appeared in Life magazine, a little piece about the Flying Santa. And Edward Rowe Snow would always include a self-addressed stamped card, like blank postcard, in the packages so the keepers could let them know if they got the package or that they got the package. So this card is from Jack O'Berry. I believe he was the Coast Guard officer in charge at Matinicus Rock, which is more than 20 miles offshore in mid-coast Maine, one of the most isolated light stations in the country. I won't read the whole thing out loud, but I like where he says, it gave me the feeling that we here on the Eastern Coast lighthouses were not being forgotten. It makes me feel happy to know there is still some kind people left in this crazy world today. I'm sure that you're one of the most kindest of them all. So that was great. And sorry, I'm letting people in from the waiting room. Here's a card from Mount Desert Rocklight, which is even more isolated. It's like 26 miles from the nearest harbor in the northern Maine coast. And Ralph Demmons, the officer in charge, wrote, "We received the package, or rather found it in a crevice between the rocks, dried it out. Nearly everything in it was usable and readable. Thanks." Someone did a real job of packing for this package to withstand the elements and seas breaking over it for so long a time. So most of the time, the packages landed just fine on dry land, but there were a number of stories about the packages being found months after Christmas in various places.
Yeah, I remember my dad saying, "Thank you for flying over. Why didn't you drop a package?"
Yeah,
And
right.
then they found out that he really did drop.
Uh-huh. Well, here's another case kind of like that where Ozzie Hallett, keeper at Race Point Light at the tip of Cape Cod, he's the man on the far left in this picture. He said, "We found the package today about a mile north." This is January 16th. Found the package about a mile northeast of here. One of the keepers taking a shortcut with the Jeep came upon it, pretty well wet and frozen, but we're drying out the books and they'll be okay. And this is from the officer in charge at Portsmouth Harbor Coast Guard Station, which had just become a Coast Guard station that year, 1948. That's when the Coast Guard moved their operation to that station in Newcastle, New Hampshire. And you see the lighthouse in the aerial picture there next to the Coast Guard station and Fort Constitution. And he mentions that the package fell right next to the lighthouse. So that was a really good shot. And I should just mention for anybody who doesn't know, lighthouse keepers in this country were civilian employees of the federal government up until 1939 when the Coast Guard took over. So gradually it all went over to the Coast Guard management. So that's why you're seeing Coast Guard keepers at that time. This is Scituate Light, just south of Boston. And the card came from the Coast Guard station, is not actually at the lighthouse, but not far from there. And the officer in charge thanked Mr. Snow for the package. The station's dogs, Caesar and Wimpy, also wish to thank you for the Gainsburgers you sent them. So Dolly mentioned earlier that some of the package would say dog on them. You can see Edward Rowe Snow wrote dog package on that card. This is Whaleback Lighthouse, not far from where I live here. It's the southernmost lighthouse in Maine. It's in Kittery, Maine, at the mouth of the Piscataqua River. In December 1948, Edward Rowe Snow dropped a bundle from the plane for the keepers at Whaleback, and the first drop was too far away for the keepers to recover. 3 weeks later, a man walking the beach in Sandwich on Cape Cod found the package 90 miles from where it had been dropped. And years later, he still had the book that was in the package, Edward Rowe Snow's Storms and Shipwrecks of New England. And you see that the card, just a little bit of the card survived that, and he mailed it to Mr. Snow. And you can see that he wrote on it, "Please be careful, this floated 90 miles." This is from a magazine. This is from Flying Magazine, 1953. And if you look closely at the lower left, you see that the story was written by Alex Haley, chief journalist for the U.S. Coast Guard. And I'm sure a lot of you know the name Alex Haley, probably most famous for writing the novel Roots, which became the very popular miniseries. But he did work for the Coast Guard. And another great picture of the Snow family. Boston Light, I'm not sure this is probably like 1950s, and you see that beautiful duplex house I mentioned before that is no longer there, but you see the keeper holding the package up in the air and Flying Santa spelled out. I'm not sure what they used in this case. When there was snow on the ground, it was pretty easy to spell out greetings to Santa, but otherwise they had to be very creative and nail down newspapers or put sticks or rocks or whatever it might be. Not quite sure what it is in this picture. This is a quick newsreel clip I'm going to play from 1959.
'Twas the day before Christmas when the New England coast awaited Ed Snow, who was taking his post as the Santa he'd played for 25 years, each and every December as Yuletide came near.
I always feel like I have to complete that, the last line of the song there. And this is video from, I think, about 1965. And that is Dolly right there. I'm going to play this clip, and you're going to see Boston Light. And keeper at the time was a man by the name of Bill Wincapaw. And you see the dogs there. There's a long history of a lot of dogs at Boston Light. It looks like there were at least 4 or 5 there at that time. And Edward Rowe Snow and Dolly and Keeper Wincapaw. And the other man there, you're going to see him on the dock with the dogs too. That's Ken Black. And I'm sure a lot of you here today know who Ken Black was. He was known as Mr. Lighthouse. He was the officer in charge of several different Coast Guard stations in his career. Last one being Rockland, Maine, and he was considered the founder of the Maine Lighthouse Museum. He saved many lenses and other artifacts from destruction. So pretty big name in lighthouse circles and a good friend of Edward Rowe Snow's. So it's neat seeing Ken Black in this clip. There he is. Mr. Lighthouse. Mentioned in a number of Edward Rowe Snow's books. And this is Sankaty Headlight in Nantucket again, and he's about to throw the package out. And you see the plexiglass window there that was custom made to fit the plane, and so that it could be flipped up to the inside, as you can see. And if you look closely, there's Anna Merle, his wife's hand holding the window open from behind him there. About 10 or so years ago, maybe more like 15 now, I gave a presentation at the library in Norwell, Mass. On the South Shore. And a man in the audience said that he worked at the Norwood Airport where they would fly out of, and he said, I have the window here. He saved it for all those years, and he gave it to me, this very same plexiglass window, and it is now in the Flying Santa archives. Pretty amazing to have that window, so maybe it'll be in a Flying Santa museum someday. This is a quick clip of Boone Island Light off the southern coast of Maine, about 8 miles out, taken from one of the Santa flights. The closest call Santa ever had was 1 year. I'm not sure exactly when it was, but 1 year the package got caught in the tail rotor as they were flying near Boone Island, and they had to make an emergency landing at Peace. So they basically almost completely lost the ability to steer. So luckily, they were able to make an emergency landing not too far from there. This is Edward Rowe Snow in a PBY Catalina plane, I'm told. And the man on the right is Bob Kennedy. He was a radio and TV personality in Boston in the 1960s. He had a show, both a radio and TV version, a show called Contact. And I'm going to play you an audio clip, just a minute or two, of Edward Rowe Snow and the Contact program, I believe 1963.
It's a rather cold, kind of snowy morning here at Norwood Airport, and the gentleman standing next to me looks like Santa Claus. In fact, kind of a special Santa Claus, a flying Santa Claus. And as I look a little closer, it kind of looks like a fellow we know very well here on Contact, Ed Rowe Snow. How are you, Ed? And kind of a little early Merry Christmas to you.
I'm very happy to be here, and I'm feeling pretty good, and Merry Christmas to you, Bob.
Ed Rowe Snow, I thought you mainly stayed aboard or near the sea. How come the airplane, and how come the flying Santa Claus?
Well, we fly out over the sea in this plane, and we will leave in just a few moments. We will cover about 1,600 miles today and go down into Maryland as our greatest objective of the day. Also, we will stop at Martha's Vineyard. We will stop at Nantucket Island. We will stop at Block Island. And meanwhile, as we go to and from those various airports, we will drop from our plane about 112 bundles.
Ed Snow, how long have you been the Flying Santa?
My first year was 1936, and I've been doing it every year except one when I was in the North African invasion. So this will be the 27th trip.
And this is a clip from, I'm sure a lot of you remember, Charles Kuralt's On the Road segments on CBS, the news. And so this is from the 1980s, and you're going to see Dolly and Anna Merle Snow in this clip.
Daughter Dorothy will never forget the thrill.
You know, it would just be very windy and noisy, and you'd go along and you'd hear you'd see him go, right out the window like that, and then again. And then he'd say, they got it, they got it. And he'd be so excited. And my mother would say, now, Edward, don't lose your hat. Come back in here.
Thank you for the things you sent down. I wish I could have seen the package fall.
Anna Merle Snow has kept all the letters from Halfway Rock and Monhegan, Cuttyhunk and Nantucket, from children in lonely places.
I saw you drop the package over Eastern Point Light, and I was the one who got it. I bet you make a lot of children happy. I am 14, and even I enjoyed it.
Mrs. Snow remembers watching the young bride of the lightkeeper at remote Gurnet Light off Plymouth.
She was out there, and it was her first year married, and she was so lonesome. And when she saw the plane coming, she ran out, and she danced up and down, and then when the package landed, you could see her feet going. She was running as fast as she could to get it, and she held it up way over her head, and you could just feel the joy that she had at that lighthouse. It really was very nice, and it made us feel good too, you know.
What?
I'm going to play a real quick clip here from 1980 WCVB Channel 5 in Boston. Mr. Snow talking about what was in the packages.
In the old days, we had cigars, cigarette candy, chewing gum, pen and pencil sets, a doll, if there are kids in the family, and a copy of my latest book, which is now my 96th book.
And another quick clip of him explaining why he stopped wearing a beard as the Flying Santa.
It has cost us over $100 every time I stick my head out of the window. Goes the beard.
And I'll just throw in, and Dolly, correct me if I haven't got this quite right, but I believe there was one year where he lost the beard out the window, and months later, a package arrived with the beard in it from one of the lighthouse keepers, along with a note saying, okay, here's your whiskers, now where's my package? Is that about right?
I think so.
Okay. That's how I heard it anyway. So this is, here he is by the helicopter. This is 1978, only the second time Santa flew in a helicopter, and it was because WGBH Public TV in Boston made a Christmas show where they did a segment on Santa, and I think they thought it'd be easier to do it in a helicopter. So that was only the second time ever. And circa probably late 70s or 1980-ish, Edward and Anna Merle. So moving along to the Hull Lifesaving Museum years. Edward Rowe Snow, well, let me show you the Hull Lifesaving Museum, which is just south of Boston on the South Shore. And this is the site of the Hull Life-Saving Station, as you can see on the sign there. Joshua James, one of the most famous members of the old U.S. Life-Saving Service, was in charge there for a number of years. So very historic station, really good little museum. Edward Rowe Snow suffered a stroke in 1981. He was not able to fly that year. Judith Van Ham, who was the director of this museum, approached Anna Merle Snow and asked if she would mind if the museum carried out the flights that year. Of course, she happily agreed. The museum had about a month to pull things together. And at a small ceremony at Logan Airport, Edward Rowe Snow's Santa suit was presented by Anna Merle and Dolly to Ed McCabe of the Hull Lifesaving Museum. And here he is in a couple of pictures with the helicopters. 3 helicopters were provided by different donors. Santa Ed, he's with, I'm not sure if it's a pilot on the left, but I know he's with the pilot there on the right. That year they flew to over 20 lighthouses from West Quoddy Head in Maine down to Rhode Island. You notice, I'm sure you've noticed, that Santa has very unusual that he has a black beard here. You don't expect that. You don't expect Santa to have a black beard. So when he would land at the stations, the kids would ask why Santa's beard was black, and they would be told that his beard doesn't turn white until Christmas Eve. So, and I guess they bought it. And this is just a quick clip from Channel 5 in Boston.
Situated on cold, lonely rocks in the chilly
1989.
Seeing a helicopter hover overhead a week before Christmas means a warm visit from someone special. For Dennis Deaver and his Coast Guard partner who manned Boston Light, the nation's oldest lighthouse, Santa's flying visit made their day.
It gets a little lonely out here, and sometimes he's the only face I see for a week other than my own, and just any visit is good, especially old Santa here.
3.5-year-old Kelsey McQuain agrees. Her dad mans the Gloucester Light.
I think it's great.
So you saw Dennis Dever, the keeper of Boston Light. They pronounced his name wrong, but I knew Dennis quite well. I used to help at tours there in the late 80s. And that was George Morgan you saw there, who flew as a volunteer as Santa for the Hull Lifesaving Museum for a number of years. And Edward Rowe Snow passed away in 1982. And this was an exhibit some years ago at the Hull Lifesaving Museum on the Flying Santa with some artifacts that actually belonged to him, and a fourth order lens from Plymouth or Gurnet Light, this on the second floor of the museum, with a cutout of Mr. Snow. And Dolly, is that cutout still? It's not. Is it there still, or is it not?
I don't think so. I think it got tired.
Yeah, this was a while ago. Yeah,
and then this picture. Anybody who knows anything about a Fresnel lens is going, he's touching the lens. He can't touch the lens, but it's a cutout and it's only
right.
And the Fresnel lens is now downstairs.
Okay, right.
And it's easily accessible to anybody, so you can see it all the time.
That's great. Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to get to the Friends of Flying Santa. Friends of Flying Santa was established as a separate nonprofit organization in 1997. The Hull Lifesaving Museum, they love being involved, but they've got a lot of other missions to fill. And Dolly's on the board, so she knows that very well. And it was a very, kind of something that was agreeable to everybody to form a separate organization. So Friends of Flying Santa has been around for just about 30 years now. Brian Tagg, for some years was still is the official photographer for Flying Santa, eventually became the president of Friends of Flying Santa and still is today. And Brian took this picture and most of the rest of the pictures I'm going to show you here. This is Chatham Light on Cape Cod, and Annisquam Light in Gloucester, Mass. Boston Light again. And again, it's always easier to spell out greetings in the snow. And Nobska Light on Cape Cod. There's a family and personnel and family from Coast Guard Group Woods Hole there in Cape Cod. So in a lot of cases, people would, in the past and to some degree today, would gather at places like this to welcome Santa and get the presents. And this is Warwick Light in Rhode Island, and those are personnel and families from Civil Engineering Unit Providence nearby there. And this is Montauk Light on Long Island, New York, and I don't think Santa's gone there in a while, but it's a great picture and certainly one of the most famous lighthouses on the East Coast. And Portland Head Light in Maine, Ram Island Ledge Light in the distance there, a very iconic lighthouse and an iconic photo because this was adapted into the Friends of Flying Santa logo. And I'm going to say a little bit about the various Santas over the years. And sometimes I'll see a picture, a Flying Santa picture, and I'll say to Brian, I can't tell which Santa that is, and he'll just say, it's Santa. What are you talking about? It's Santa Claus. But this Santa in this picture, I believe, is Tom Guthline. And Tom, if you're here, unmute yourself and say hello, because I think maybe Tom, he was hoping to be here, but I don't think he is. But anyway, Tom Guthline is retired Chief Warrant Officer in the Coast Guard. He flew first time in 1997. He was Executive Petty Officer of Station Gloucester and lived at Annisquam Light for a while. And I believe there was a time when he actually flew with Santa to Annisquam Light and gave presents to his own kids, and they didn't recognize him. So that's a good Santa. Really did a great job. Still does a great job. He's been very involved for almost 30 years now. This is Santa Dave Waldrop, I think. Brian, jump in and correct me if I got them wrong. Dave first flew in 1994, another retired Coast Guard Chief Warrant Officer, and flew a number of times after that. And Santa Dave Considine is here tonight. And these pictures are actually not from the Christmas season. These are from an event, geez, I'm not sure how many years ago. It was more than 10 years ago now, I believe. On the left there, he's with my late friend John Forbes of Friends of the Boston Harbor Islands. This was on George's Island of Boston Harbor. For years, there was an annual Edward Rowe Snow Day in August near his birthday. And on the upper right, you see the memorial that's on George's Island to Edward Rowe Snow. And there's Brian and Santa. And in the middle, Dolly. And Dolly, you must be kneeling down or something there because you're taller than that. Or maybe it's just low, you're standing on lower ground. But anyway.
Standing in a hole.
And the bottom there, you see a lot of the Snow Bicknell clan there in front of the helicopter. And in the red shirt, just to the left of Santa in that picture is Evan Weil, who's been another very important part of the program, and has flown as a pilot. And for some years, actually, his own helicopter was used. And this is Brian. This is Evan's helicopter at that time, right?
Correct. It's an MD 520N NOTAR. There's no tail rotor. It's got an exhaust nozzle for direction.
Okay, thank you. Okay, neat. Yeah, as I think I said before, Brian, you know a lot more about aircraft than I do, so thank you for that. Which is saying you know a lot more than nothing, because I know nothing. So this is a picture I took, I'm going to say, what year was this, Brian? This is more than 10 years ago. And that's Chief John Roberts at Portsmouth Harbor Station. So how many years ago were you in charge there, John?
Oh, he had to go.
I'm right here.
Oh.
I was in charge of the Portsmouth Light and station from 07 to 11.
Oh, okay. Okay. So this is like 15 years ago, maybe. And a special award was given to Brian for all his years of devotion to the Flying Santa program, telling him how much the Coast Guard appreciates all of it. It was nice to be there for that. And this is Santa Bill Donahue. I think it is. Am I right about? Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this is Bill Donahue. Is another retired. Sorry,
that's Bill.
It is. Okay, I thought so. Another retired chief warrant officer who's been Santa in some of the recent flights, and all these guys do such a great job. And of course, the pilots, I know Brian's going to want to say more about this, but the pilots are such a huge part of the program. This is a pilot by the name of Dale Hardy, who flew, I think, for about 10 years for Flying Santa. Did a lot of, he wasn't in the Coast Guard. I don't think he was, or maybe he was at some point, but he would fly a lot of times for the Coast Guard for various reasons. I got to fly out with him to Graves Light in 2001 when it was being solarized. Amazing day to land at Graves Light and then fly right near Boston Light. Great guy, great pilot, and an important part of the program. And two pilots, I believe it was Fisher Scientific, who donated helicopters for some years. And again, I know Brian's going to want to say more, but the helicopters in recent years, helicopters and pilots, fuel and everything has been donated. It's just absolutely amazing, the donations from these companies. And the pilots really get into it, as you can see. That is Lorraine Todd and Art Goodjikian, two pilots for Fisher Scientific at that time. And obviously, Lorraine really got into the spirit. And when there's time, kids get a little tour of Santa's sleigh or helicopter. This is West Shop Light in 2003, and the woman in the blue purplish cloak there is Seamond Ponsart Roberts, the same little girl you saw at Cuttyhunk Lighthouse in the 1940s. She got to fly along as the elf that day, and this is at West Shop Light, where she lived for 10 years as a girl. The day they were going to be there, I took the ferry out to Martha's Vineyard and met them there, and it was just so great to see. She was so happy to do that. And she took a few of us on a really quick tour through the keeper's house where she lived as a girl and said, "Oh, that's where my father made his ship models," and things like that. So that was a great day. And the same day they went to Plymouth Light, or Gurnet Light, and there's Dolly with Simon on the left and Brian and Dolly with her on the right. And Dolly, I believe you and Simon had never met before that day, but you had corresponded a lot. So it was pretty cool you got to meet that day. And this is on the left, that is Connie Small, who I was lucky enough to know. She was the author of a book called The Lighthouse Keeper's Wife. She wrote when she was 85 years old. Her husband, Elson Small, was the last keeper at Portsmouth Harbor Light. And in that picture, she's with Sally Snowman, who was keeper at Boston Light for 20 years until she retired 2 years ago. And that's a copy of Sally's book there. So Sally was on the board of Friends of Flying Santa for a number of years. She just recently stepped down from that. But on the right there, that's at the mess or cafeteria in Coast Guard Station Portsmouth Harbor in 2004. And that is Bill Wincapaw III and Connie Small and Santa. And Connie actually knew Bill Wincapaw the first. So it was pretty neat for her to meet Bill III. That was a really special day. This is the 75th anniversary, a celebration of the Coast Guard Station in Boston. And the board of directors, Brian on the left there, and in the center, Dale Hardy, the pilot, holding that plaque. And with Admiral Pekoski, who was in charge of the Coast Guard District at that time, Evan Weil next to him, Lorraine still wearing that nose on the far right. And down below, that is Laurie Newmeyer, who was the director of the Hull Lifesaving Museum at that time, and Ed McCabe, who you saw with the black beard when he was Santa. Finally, his beard was the right color, and I believe he did get involved and do some flying as Santa in not too many years ago with his white beard, and Admiral Pekoski with him there. And here is Bill III and Ken Black, who I showed you before at Boston Light, unveiling a plaque commemorating Captain Wincapaw at the Maine Lighthouse Museum in Rockland, along with an exhibit on the history of the Flying Santa. And I'm going to play you about a 2-minute clip here from a TV station in Connecticut on the Flying Santa from a few years ago, and it's just a really good summing up of the program.
The sound is glittering as little children wait patiently, breathlessly anticipating the arrival of a Yuletide legend. And then, in a flash, he appears out of the clouds and zooms past Stratford Point Lighthouse.
It was unbelievable. My son was so excited to see the chopper come in with Santa Claus.
Forget Dasher and Dancer, good old St. Nick is flying in style aboard a very small and agile helicopter.
It was pretty cool how they circled around, and the kids just went nuts. They loved it.
From his high-tech sleigh, he can see welcoming waves and big smiles. So he descends as the breeze blows like crazy, creating flurries of gleeful excitement.
Windy, it looked like a tornado.
After a year of being nice, not naughty, the kids see Flying Santa step out of the chopper, ready to make their Christmas dreams come true.
Here comes Santa Claus, right down Santa Claus Lane.
This all dates back to 1929, when a float plane pilot named William Wincapaw started literally dropping sacks of presents from the sky onto the grounds of coastal beacons so that the families of lighthouse keepers could have gifts and supplies for the holidays.
So he figured it was a pretty lonely existence out there at Christmas, and he wanted to go out and give them packages of coffee, candy, magazines, books, and flew over on Christmas Day.
When lighthouses became automated, the tradition changed but remained just as special. Now, 82 years later, Flying Santa honors the families of Coast Guard personnel, our current heroes of the waters.
They're out there doing their job every day, and this is our way of saying thanks for what they do.
This modern-day Flying Santa visits 33 lighthouses and Coast Guard stations in 3 days, delivering presents to more than 700 children from Maine to New York.
Just a great appreciation that they recognize us and everything, and all the kids, and all of us out here coming together as one big family.
And the children's faces clearly show the magic of the season.
Oh, he is so excited. Like, now he believes in Santa Claus. It's something he'll never forget.
Feeling like it's cool and awesome.
For goodness sake, don't feel bad for Rudolph and Prancer.
No, the reindeer rest up for Christmas, so we don't want to wear them out.
Santa is full of energy as his whirlybird slowly lifts off, bound for many more merry moments. A beautiful nautical tradition full of volunteerism, gratitude, and good cheer. The perfect sentiments for Christmas time.
There's nothing commercial about it. I mean, we're here doing our job as a gesture of appreciation for what the Coast Guard does, and we're happy to do it.
That's Mommy Minute.
Merry Christmas!
Sarah Cody, Fox, Connecticut.
Like I said, I think it's a great summing up, especially the kid who says it's cool and awesome. That really sums it up. They did a good job of pointing out the transition, how because the lighthouses are automated, it's not so much honoring lighthouse keepers that was largely what it started out as, but now it's honoring and showing gratitude to Coast Guard families. And the kids appreciate it just as much as they ever did at the Coast Guard stations. So if you go to flyingsanta.org, there's some merchandise for sale there. You can also make a donation through the website. But here are a couple of things. Every year there's a different Flying Santa mascot with the Flying Santa hoodie on, as you can see there. So you can buy those through the website. I have a couple of them on the shelves behind me here. And Love from the Sky is a children's book made about the Seamond and Flying Santa story that you can also buy through the website, along with various articles of clothing and so forth.
Jeremy, this is this year's the 2025. We've got a teddy bear.
Okay.
But unfortunately, the Seamon's children's book is back ordered, and it's probably not going to get here until after Christmas. So.
Oh. Okay, but it could still be mailed after Christmas if somebody orders it. Right?
They usually have a quicker turnaround, but for some reason, when I ordered them last month, it was like a 6-week production time. So.
Yeah, I've noticed that too with Amazon publishing. Yeah, lately it's been a little slow, but anyway.
We have plenty of the 2025 bears, and they're on the website, and you can order them right now.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and the hoodies and hats and things like that.
The sweatshirts are coming in next week, so we'll have a new line of sweatshirts, the hooded Flying Santa sweatshirts, all sizes, and we've got new winter hats coming in and new ball caps coming in. So they all should be ready by the end of next week.
Great. Okay, I'm actually going to come out of screen sharing at this point, and I'm always relieved to see there's some people still here when I do a presentation like this, because I can't see anybody while I'm presenting. So thank you all for bearing with us here. And again, thank you. Was it Julie who helped me out at the beginning there? Again, thank you so much for that. But Brian, maybe you could update us on the numbers this year. I have I know it's gone to as many as 1,200 children in the past, and as many as 200 families. I know it's kind of gone up and down, but what kind of numbers are we looking at this year?
It's down quite a bit. Coast Guard's had some recruitment issues in the past, but they've come up with a lot of new people. But just the number of kids is way down. We'll be lucky if we break 800, 850 this year. What I'm hearing sometimes, or from some of the stations, that people are waiting to have kids. They're waiting until they're older and more financially stable. But it was kind of surprising when we hit 1,200. We thought, it was only going to go up from there. Then we had COVID, which had dropped off a little bit, not a lot, but it dropped off a little bit. And it just, So we're hoping, that the numbers come up, and I think there's a big push to give the Coast Guard more funding and recruit more personnel. So, we got to be careful what we wish for, because, if we come to 2,000 children someday.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just opening the chat here. So we do want to get to people's questions. Sorry, I'm just seeing that somebody sent me a private message, but I'll figure that out in a minute. But anyway, Dolly, let me start kick off the Q&A by asking you, And I've probably asked you this before, but what was your favorite thing about being part of? When you flew again, I don't think I actually said it in the presentation, but you flew every year from, I don't know if we want to give this away, from what, 1951, something like that, to
Say something.
through 1980, virtually every year, right?
Several years, yes, many years.
Okay.
But then I also got to be an elf
Right, right. Okay. Which
twice, maybe three times.
yeah, and I know you appreciated the helicopter, right, as opposed to the planes you used to fly in.
Yes, I did not have much fun during the planes because it was so rough. It was
Yeah.
just, I was not made for a little plane. But
Yeah.
as I told Evan, the pilot, when I went up, first I was very nervous because I was afraid I was going to be airsick the way I had been on the planes. But it was, as I told him, it was just like a magic carpet.
Yep.
It was just, and he was so good as a pilot.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you what? Yeah. I feel exactly the same way. I've had a couple of bad experiences flying in small planes to take photographs, really bad experiences. But I love flying in helicopters. To me, it's so much more pleasant and more
Hey,
smooth.
Jeremy, can I jump in real quick? There was a
Yep.
comment in chat about someone that worked at Bayberry Financial Group in Hampton. Said one of the owners has a collage of flying Santa photos in his office, and that was Paul Montrone, who, going back to the first year after Edward Rowe Snow's stroke, Wheelabrator Fry up in New Hampshire provided the 109 helicopter. And for many, many, many years, as long as Paul Montrone had a helicopter attached to whatever company he was working for, he would donate that helicopter and pilot services for our Maine, New Hampshire flight. So Patricia Evans, yes, we know that very well. We're very appreciative of Paul Montrone and all the pilots that flew for Fisher Scientific and Granite State Aviation, and I think it was Thermo Fisher Scientific at one point, but that was a great sponsor of the program for many, many years, and was very much appreciated.
Yeah, Patricia just said yes, Paul Montrone. Yeah. So Brian, maybe you want to, speaking of pilots, maybe do you want to say maybe a little bit more about just how much the pilots and helicopter companies have meant to this program?
Well, when I first started back in 1991, we had to pay for some of the helicopters, and back then it was about $500 an hour. Now it would be anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 an hour, and that's 4 to 5 hours per flight. So it's quite a bit of money. But we've been fortunate since about 2002 that all the helicopter services have been donated by, like Paul Montrone's company, Evan Weil, JVI Helicopters up in New Hampshire, Tuckamore Aviation, Heliops with West Viercart, Stuart Auerbach, and now we've got Boston Executive Helicopters, who's filling in this year. They filled in 2019, and they're going to be a Rhode Island South Shore Boston flight. But just a great group of pilots. They say it's their best day of flying all year. It gets a little boring sometimes when you're flying a helicopter airport to airport. So they're landing in backyards and on cliffs, and they just have a lot of fun with it. And we're very fortunate that these folks have provided not just the helicopter and their skills, but there's just their good cheer. I mean, they really are good sports about it, and they have fun. And I think the first time I flew, the pilot waited in the helicopter like he was a taxi driver. And, we had to coax him out and say, hey, inside there's cookies and brownies and hot chocolate and coffee. So, come on in and enjoy the party. And ever since then, all the pilots come in. We've got them jackets and hats and fleeces, and, they're an official crew, and they're in the noses. Yeah. So going back to the picture with the noses, that was LeRae Todd. And what LeRae would do is he would deputize children as reindeer. And he always had these red clown noses in his pockets. And if there was one special kid there, he'd take the nose and put it on him and pose. And because we would call our pilots reindeer. I don't know if they all took it well, but that was the thing. We call them reindeer that were flying Santa around. And just very good sports. And it's a tradition that continues today. We have cases of red noses that we provide them, and when it strikes them, they will take them out and and deputize a few at a time. You know, we can, if there's 50 kids at a stop, we don't have 50 red noses, but it's just a really good sports, and you know, it saved us tens of thousands of dollars over the years, and that we put that into better toys. We've got remote control cars and spiders and snakes and all kinds of stuffed animals and planes and Lego sets. So yeah, we've been fortunate that we've got the funding to put into the toys, but every year we're down to the bottom of our bank account because the toys are more expensive. This year is the most expensive I've seen it in a long time.
Yeah.
Price point now about $15 to $20 per toy, and you know, you figure we've averaged over the past 6 years of 1,000 kids. It's, you know, it's a good piece of change. And all of that, we provide batteries, so every toy that requires batteries are included. And starting back in COVID, we were able to fly. We got permission to fly, but it was a drive up. So we flew in, and there was a 6-foot table, and the cars would drive up with the kids, and they'd be standing up in the sunroofs and holding up signs, and we'd slide a bag down for the family's gifts. And we've kept that tradition. So we have a big toy bag, but it's bagged by family. So when we call them up, we get the whole family at once, and we open it up and hand out the toys. Because in the past, it was packed by age. So you would have all the older kids on the bottom and all the younger kids at the top. So if you had a family had a 6-month-old and a 12-year-old, well, they'd have to wait the whole time to get all their gifts. And, you know, they'd have to come back again and do a family picture. So now we just give out the family bag. They get all their toys at once. They can pose with Santa. So it's worked out really well. But it's a lot of work, but it's very well received by the Coast Guard families. You know, they tell us year round how much they look forward to it, and how much their kids grow up, you know, thinking of Santa in a helicopter and not a sleigh. It's just, you know, they get tired. The parents get tired of it because every time there's a helicopter flying over, the kids think it's Santa. So but you know, John Roberts has experienced it with his kids. Tom Gutline, Dave Considine, Dave Waltrip, Bill Donahue. They've all experienced it when they were in the Coast Guard with their kids, and we're happy to have them on board as Santas because it makes a special connection, them being previous Coast Guard family.
Right.
Active duty. So.
You're just reminding me how when I've been at various places to see Santa arriving, or one time actually flying all day with Santa, it seems like at every stop, there's always seems to be one kid, usually a little girl, who can't help herself, has to run up to Santa and hug him right away. You saw it in that Connecticut TV clip there, a little girl. And that just seems to be some sort of tradition. It's funny. But the kid they're so full of happiness, they just can't contain it.
And they don't outgrow it. Most of them don't outgrow it because John Roberts can attest to that. His daughters are, how old are they now, John?
Brian, they are 28 and 26.
And they still come to Flying Santa and help out Santa, give out gifts, and they also receive gifts themselves. So they never stop believing in Santa.
Well, you never outgrow Santa.
No, you're not allowed to. It's 1,000% correct. They met Brian and Santa in the helicopter in 2003, and it's never stopped since. And even when I was overseas in Iraq, Bahrain, and in Kuwait for 2011 or 2012, and Brian and Santa still made sure to take care of my kids. So I'm in it for life.
That's great. I want to make sure people have a chance to ask questions if you want to, and you can ask in the chat. I don't see any outstanding questions in the chat right now, but feel free to ask in the chat, or if anybody has any questions you want to ask verbally, please click on the raise hand down the bottom of your controls. You can click on raise hand, and I'll let you unmute yourselves. Or maybe there are no more questions. I see Shalana, who's a friend, who's co-host of my podcast. She says, shout out to the amazing staff at Piney Point Lighthouse. They decorate the keeper's house for the holidays and always have the history of the Flying Santa as part of their exhibit. That's in Maryland. I was there last year, so that's nice to hear. So let's see. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat. I'm not seeing any raised hands. So I want to make sure if you want to ask a question, please do so now. Brian, Dolly, Bill, we haven't heard from Bill here. Bill the third. Where would you go? Oh, as somebody left, you popped to a different part of my screen here. But I just want to make sure if you would like to say something about kind of the family legacy there. I mean, what a great thing to be the grandson of the original Flying Santa. And I know you've been at some of the stops for Santa over the years, including Portsmouth that time I showed, but I don't think you've flown as an elf, have you, Bill? At least not yet.
No, he flew as William Wincapaw III, not as an elf. So
okay.
The elf position.
That's right. So you did fly. In fact, I think was that the year you stopped at Burnt Island? I think there was a picture of you there.
Yes, I think that was it. I remember that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway,
it was a thrill. All of it was just a thrill to do, and seeing this tradition keep going with all the people and the sacrifice and the work was fantastic.
Yeah. Well, none of it would be possible, obviously, without your family and the Snow family.
Snows, yes, everyone in a sense, everything, yes, exactly.
And Brian is all part of the same.
Everyone, Brian, yeah, he's been in there forever. Yes.
Bill was able to bring his wife Denise and his two kids, and they came up, and I think it was their first time seeing snow, and they were so well received that his son said that when he grew up, he was moving to Maine.
Did he?
After the helicopter ride, he said he came back and he says, when I grow up, I'm moving to Maine. I said, why? He says, because they know us there. Yeah, he had no idea.
Legendary family, yeah.
That's great.
But I'd like to say, absolutely thank you to Dolly and Bill and their families. They've been so supportive over the years with financial donations and just participation. We've had Dolly's daughter and two grandsons fly on the helicopter with us, and it's so good because we tried for years to get Dolly, but she just was not comfortable because of her experience with the airplanes, and then when she finally flew in the helicopter, she found it was a much more peaceful ride.
So much nicer.
But it's so good for us to be able to have the connection to the original Wincapaw family and the Snow family, and know that we've got their support. Because it's you don't want to disappoint the heritage of the families that started all this, and I'm hoping we don't do that. And
you have gone out of your way to make sure that we all love you, and we do, and you make it possible for everybody to enjoy the joy. I mean, the adults, the kids, the Santas, everybody. It's all joy. Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. That's what it's about. It's you can't be involved in something like this and be negative or
Grinch
or difficult. You have to enjoy it. I mean, if you don't enjoy it, there's something wrong with you, because there's just too much good in this whole program, and we're happy to keep doing it.
Yeah. So I'm just checking the chat. People, sorry.
I just want to not forget Jeremy. I mean, Jeremy's here as the host and all that stuff, but Jeremy's been behind the scenes with so many things, with the history and the presentations and the research, and he's just been a good friend to me and the program over the years, and we very much appreciate all the effort that he's put in.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, and right back at you. We've known each other 30 years. I keep asking. It's got to be 30 years now.
Although a lot of the time, Jeremy thinks of me as the pesky younger brother.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, annoying younger brother, but in a good way.
Oh, I said pesky. That's a difference.
I'd say annoying. But anyway, again, thank you everybody so much. What more can you say? You guys have summed it up pretty well. It's just a wonderful tradition. It's like one big happy family, everybody who's been involved with it. And may it continue for another 100 years. In 4 years, we'll be celebrating the 100th anniversary. I'm sure something big will happen that year.
Hopefully.
Yeah. So let me just say that I don't have anything scheduled yet, but watch for more of these Zoom events. There certainly will be more coming up in the new year. I'm also a little sneak preview. I'm planning, some of you know I do the podcast for the OS Lighthouse Society. Usually at the beginning of these events, I introduce myself. I never did that, but maybe you figure it out. A lot of you know who I am, but a historian for the OS Lighthouse Society, and I do the podcast Lighthearted. And next year, I plan to start doing, I think, a monthly live version of Lighthearted, which should be a lot of fun. So watch for that. I hope it'll be a lot of fun. So again, Dolly and Brian and Bill and John and all of you, thank you so much for being part of this event. And I wish you all the best for the holiday season. And keep a good light, everybody. Thank you so much. Brian wants to add something.
Quick plug, if you want to support the program, you're welcome to go to the website. There's a lot of video, photos. There's also a donation page. Every donation, large or small, helps the program. So we have the merchandise, but donations are always welcome. And, it's if you want to show some appreciation for the presentation, reach down and help us buy toys, because the bills are going to be coming in soon and we got to pay them off. So,
yeah, I'm glad you got that in, Brian. Excellent. Yeah, very important. So again, thank you, everybody. Take care. We'll see you around.
Good night.
Take care, everyone.
Good night. Night.